Hello, my name is John Andrews, and today I'll be talking about the review I conducted on Chapter 5 of Mark Noll's work, America's God, from Jonathan Edwards to Abraham Lincoln. This work was written in 2002 by Dr. Noll and is an informative and inclusive work on how Christianity developed from the late 1600s through the 1860s. The focus today will be on the 5th chapter, titled Christian Republicanism. Some other sources that I referenced in doing my research here and formulating this response were Edmund Morgan's American Slavery, American Freedom, The Ordeal of Colonial Virginia, Edmund Burke's The Debate on the American Revolution, and Edmund Morgan's The Sacred Cause of Liberty, Republican Thought in the Millennium and Revolutionary New England. This chapter covered the paradox shift in the mindset and language of the pre-revolutionary American Christian. This shift was from a purely spiritual method of speaking, writing, and conducting oneself to that of a Republican political philosophy. Within this section, Noll referenced several key points in history that encompass this shift. Now I'll begin to explore each of these points. Noll began his chapter by examining the language and usage of words in the early 1700s. His focus was on liberty and virtue and how their definition changed over time. He argued that originally these two words were purely spiritual in context and were often used in sermons in reference to God's work and how a Christian should live. However, in the 1740s, a shift towards using these words in a Republican philosophy encompassed more of a mental and physical approach to understanding British rule. Noll's argument included referencing how famous preachers of the time, specifically Cotton Mather, John Wise, George Whitefield, Gilbert Tennent, and Jonathan Edwards, used and transformed the Christian vocabulary to one of republicanism rhetoric. Another major factor that contributed to the paradigm shift was the French and Indian War. Noll argued that the war itself helped to justify the American colonists going to war to rid themselves of the French influence was not only their God-given right, but was part of their salvation and steps towards liberty as a nation. It was also during this time that political messages delivered from the pulpits across the colonies were anti-tyrannical at their core, and sermons would link politics and religion, helping form the American spirit and ideals that would be necessary to spark the seeds for the American Revolution. By the end of the French and Indian War, the anti-British sentiment was strong and growing stronger in America. The usage of the church helped to spread this message, and the justification to form a new nation had been born. Noll's next section within this chapter discussed how Republican service shaped a religious reform. His main point here was to clarify how Republicans' reasoning became such a point of fixation among Americans. He argued that it was because of Americans' revivalist preachers that were able to shape the political rhetoric of their time into sermons and influence the average American colonist. Within this section, he paid special note to Isaac Backus, who was a New England Baptist preacher and was a leading figure in this movement. It was also within this section that Noll addressed how Tom Paine's Common Sense tract utilized Christian language as a Republican rhetoric and influenced the Founding Fathers in their formation of the Declaration of Independence. Despite Paine's misgivings within the church, his words were able to resonate with many colonists during this early part of the American Revolution. Noll concluded his chapter with how the war itself solidified the connection between Christianity and Republican ideals. He argued that the vocabulary of liberty and ideals were now solidified in the Christian and Republican world, as well as the linking of the Christian and political worlds. Noll summarized that only because of being ideologically flexible were the spheres of Christian republicanism and the early United States able to become mixed together and melded to what they are today. Looking through this chapter, it is easy to discern how we as a nation have governed ourselves and balanced religion. Despite some recent setbacks, America still has the spirit to adapt and work together to solve our bigger issues. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this post, and I look forward to reading and seeing everybody else's. Thanks.